So if our speakers could join us again, and you can take some time to put on your microphones. But then I can start with a question to you, Helena. So on this, the three arrows you showed, how could you contribute and leverage on what EU is investing in order to sort of support what you all want to achieve?
Well, absolutely. EU and how we can collaborate in a national setting. That is, I mean, for the vision, what are the possibilities together? So we are currently defining the current state, but definitely going forward, how can we use the resources that can be provided from the international level for where we want to be in a short, middle, and a long term?
That's very good, because I think maybe you could even add an arrow, because I think, and I think we all that work on a European level, I mean, we need to co-create here. Absolutely. You know, no one has the answer. So your experiences are very important also for an international community. So another arrow, perhaps. Okay, so I think also for you joining us digitally, make sure you have your questions. So I thought I'll start with one, but then I'll open up the floor, of course. And this is, you know, this time is for us. So this is, I mean, we should come together. I mean, we're doing the Partnership for Personalized Medicine. It's a joint endeavor, and it's sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, discussing, and being open. So, I mean, don't hesitate to ask your questions. So I'm going to start with one that Helena Linge helped me with, because I think this is, all the people here are really passionate of what they're doing. You've heard several times that it's bottom up. So it's actually people seeing a need and a solution that they want to push forward. So starting with you, Helena Linge, describe your inspiration and motivation behind your engagement and work that you do today.
Oh, that little one. Thank you, Malin, for the question. Well, let me say, coming from the positive side, I think I have an urge to make a change for the better. And coming at it from the more negative side, I think when I was a young researcher, I was 26 when I defended my thesis, I realized now I was quite impatient. And I realized that there were other ways to move things forward. And what I now learned about implementation science, and we all know that we should quit smoking, we all know that we should eat vitamin C, and still people smoke and get skörbjugg, I don't know that word in English. Scurvy, is it? Yeah. So there are many gaps in moving an idea into reality. There are many gaps along that way. And I was fortunate enough to work in the pediatric oncology field with a quality registry, and a gentleman who had the foresight to code patients in southern Sweden in a certain way, which enabled us to help healthcare call upon them who were at risk for a second cancer. And this was, I would say, a life-changing moment for me when I realized that there were other ways than doing basic research where I came from to help. And this has led me to information-driven care in Halland and many other collaborations along the way. So still here to make things better and to kind of bridge those gaps along the chain from idea to reality.
Thank you. And then I go to Anna, the same question. And I'm thinking, from a rare disease perspective, of course, internationalization or collaboration has its, you have to do that, right? Because the patients are so few. But so what is your passion and what drives you?
It's many things, but it's using the whole potential and really unleashing the power of joining forces. I'm very much a team player, and I also think that we have so much expertise that we're not really using in the optimal way. So that's working in an environment that sort of has that spirit is what I really like. On top of that, then the enormous breakthroughs in technology and basic science, because we are learning biology of disease at the same time. So using all the parts of the spectrum to really both increase knowledge and really do something good is sort of what I really like. But it's been a tremendous thing when the breakthrough technologies and the treatments, it's like science fiction, and then it's so an immediate benefit. So that's, yeah, the team, the systems building. I believe very much in systems building, and we're good at that in Europe. To be speaking of competitiveness, that's what we need to do, take away a lot of regulations and use our common strengths. So the whole becomes more than the parts. Now it's actually smaller than the parts because we're not using it optimally.
And I think from coming from Sweden's Innovations Agency, I think for me, we're working on systems and system innovation. I think, at least from my side, that's also one of my reasons for working there. Karin?
Yeah. Sorry. I get my energy from making life better for lung cancer patients. And as Vice President in Lung Cancer Association, we focus on early detection, more clinical studies, more equal care in the whole country. As I said, we're talking about before, there's so big difference between the 21 regions in Sweden. And we work with to influence national and regional and regional decision makers. Thank you very much. And we have found the last 5 years that we are lucky in our work, and we have to be a sort of a pain in the ass, and that's how we work. And then we support our members. That's a big deal, our work. We have sort of digital educations in different subjects, and we arrange a meeting where our relatives and patients can meet and come together. And then we have a support phone where people, our patients or their relatives can phone, and it's always a patient in our board that answer the phone. And it's so many patients that are lonely and they are so unhappy. So we in different ways try to give them more hope. And we have seen the last 5 years since the precision medicine and immunotherapy was introduced for lung cancer patients, such a big difference. And that's so important for us to show that today it's so different to have this diagnosis than it was 5 or 7 years ago. So that's my passion.
Yeah, and I think we need people that are pain in the ass, because I think that also makes changes.
Yeah.
And thinking about, Helena, what you were saying with the care pathways, and the soul and the body is very much one. And of course, the care pathway affects you as a patient, even though it doesn't have a direct effect on your disease. Your soul and your mental health is affected by it. Yeah, Rickard, why are you working with Kevas? But I'm thinking, what is, when you wake up in the morning, I mean,
Yes.
What is it that drives you every day?
I should say my wife is asking me, are you not tired of yourself? Not overall, but when talking about precision medicine or personalized medicine. And no, I think that already since I did med school, I've been fascinated by genomics and blood cancer. So that is, I think, is a driving force. And we have seen a fantastic change, revolution in blood cancer. We have all these technologies to characterize the tumors, which has led to identifying new type of treatment. And for instance, the disease that I'm working with, it's called chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It's the most common leukemia. These patients were treated with chemoimmunotherapy, but nowadays we have stopped using chemoimmunotherapy. They only get targeted therapy. And I think it's fantastic that we can experience in real time that we do this shift from the old cytostatic drugs to the new treatments, also using new. What we do is, of course, we use genomics technology to find the patients that should get these targeted therapies, the right targeted therapy. So for me, that is the driving force. And then I really think it is super important that it's equal. And it's not equal. Even in Sweden, we are trying to be equal, but it's not. I come from the very far north, and it's such a huge difference when I see my mother go to healthcare compared to here in Stockholm. And this is not, it's not a good way. We have to bridge this.
And Helena.
Yes, well, I can just echo what all of you said, and really, Karin, listening to your story, I think that is really it really touches. At least, you know, I feel very I get emotional when I hear about the patient's story, because that is why we are doing it. We are here for our patients, and we have to make the system work for the patient in a sustainable way. And that is really just summarizing everything that you are saying. So we're all in total agreement. But I get very moved when I hear stories like this, and I want more people to be able to share success stories.
I agree completely. Now,
All in you then.
what trend we have? Being a pain in the ass. No. No, but I think, yes, of course, equality, but also after working in different areas of the system, you have sort of an understanding of the different parts and what drives the different parts. And then I'm thinking I might do something good by understanding so that I can contribute to this system change. Because, you know, we're driven by different incentives, we're driven by different motivations, and so you need to learn how to speak, sort of, to get them to move together in a certain direction. Because I believe we need to do things in parallel. There is no way we can start sort of with primary data and just, okay, the secondary use, let's do that some other time. No, that's not the way. We need to learn how to do things in parallel. Questions?
No, it's not here. So, I'm Alexandru Costescu. I'm a policy officer in DG Research and Innovation in the European Commission. I have been working for the European Commission for about 15 years. I was project officer in the past for projects related for a long time for pediatrics medicine, for medical imaging, cancer, rare disease as well. Currently, I'm one of the policy officers that deal with these two partnerships, the partnership on personalized medicine and the partnership on transforming healthcare systems. I have two questions. One is on pharmacogenomics that has been mentioned during the presentation on genomic medicine in Sweden. So I remember you have mentioned several areas: cancer, rare diseases, microbiology, and also pharmacogenomics. Here we have, I'm targeting specifically an issue related to comorbidities and polypharmacy. So we have a group of people, they may be old or not, a certain age, but we know that they may suffer of several diseases, which is in itself a clinical problem to treat several diseases in the same person with a weak organism. And also they take several medicines, sometimes more than 5. Those medicines can interact among themselves, so you have risks of adverse reactions or insufficient reactions. And the question is, how are you approaching this problem from the viewpoint of pharmacogenomics? We at the European Commission have been funding projects on pharmacogenomics and have, let's say, are preoccupied about this aspect. That's one question. can I ask the second one? The second question would be related to health economics, and more precisely on health technology assessment. So probably you are more advanced, and maybe you can share with us how do you proceed in order to, because science is advancing with a fantastic speed, and new therapies appear, new, let's say, clinical protocols, procedures. How do you manage in your relation with the authorities that do the health technology assessment to make sure that these therapies come quickly as new clinical guidelines and are implemented in real time, such as to serve the patient? So it's a matter of interaction with the authorities. Thank you.
I can start with the pharmacoeconomics. So we have a specific national working group on pharmacoeconomics, and they have set up, of course, guidelines, what type of pharmacoeconomics should be included. And in all our gene panels, we have included pharmacoeconomics genes. Also, they have also developed protocols for extracting that information from the whole genome sequence data. But the problem is, which is a structural problem, they cannot get it alerted in the healthcare system because we have so many different electronic healthcare records. And even they have tried at certain university hospitals to make this happen, but we know there are systems available, but it has been difficult to convince our authorities that you have to introduce this at the national level, so everyone can so you can mark that you have a certain pharmacoeconomics variant, so it pop-ups when you make the prescription that you have to consider this. So this is something that we are trying to explain on a strategic level, but it's very difficult, even though we say that you will save money, and of course not only money, but for the patients also. So I think this is super important, but it's actually more difficult than I thought to really make it happen in a country.
So I'll just keep with Anna or Helena Linge.
I can start a bit on the health economy. So that's a huge question, of course, and there are standard ways of doing it in sort of the more maybe conventional type of medicine. But where we are now, we need to take a totally new take on that, which requires a lot of different types of work because we need the data to be able to measure things. And then we also need the models to actually visualize the benefits of an early diagnosis and treatment. They come out as expensive even when they save costs because it's in different parts of the system. But you need data for that. And we are trying again to use pilots to really show the value of stuff. And there are many pilots going on. I think GMS does a lot. PMCK, the Precision Medicine Center here, is also doing a lot. We did on newborn screening, for example, 2 diseases. We could show that we generate 350 QALYs. And you sometimes say that they can cost $1 million each, but we at the same time save 700 million crowns. So that surprises everyone. And we have a budget of 50. So, I mean, there are these obvious examples that we can use to try to nudge the system in the right direction. But I hope that this type of question should be, because what we need to do in the network is to identify which questions are generic and something that we all should work on. And this is something that we should do together, GMS and also the Precision Medicine Network that is coming now. But gather evidence and show the benefit and then work with our decision makers to make this change, because that's the only way to afford it. And I mean, we're actually working with Holland a little bit because we have very different healthcare examples, but the same philosophy with this patient-encountered costing that you have worked out with Marcus Lingman. So if we join forces and everyone from the profession has the same opinion with strong evidence, I think it can happen. But it takes a little work.
And we have, I don't know, Kristina Levin, you're director of the ATMP Center. Any thoughts on the HTA you would like to share, or did I put you on the spot? No. You can think about it. Okay.
Regarding HTA specifically, yeah, so we have complications and difficulties when it comes to HMP, of course, because there are super expensive products and we have not yet the models on how to handle that in Sweden. I think in many of the countries around the world and of course in Europe we see the same difficulties. So So let's see what happens next year, if we can have a support from the joint assessment, and we have to understand how we will handle that in Sweden, of course. But I think if we can collaborate and understand how to work with that on a European level, it would be sufficient, I think.
I would just have a follow-up question on the pharmacogenomics. So Helena Linge, so in your region, so you have sort of the data in a warehouse. Is pharmacogenomics something, and having this sort of traffic light system in the e-health records, something you are working on?
It's a little bit out of my depth. I know it's included in the panels in our pathology departments. I'm unaware of where the information actually ends up. And I'm also not sure about it being done in Halland or at Sahlgrenska or Lund, actually.
So it's a good point, because I know we've discussed it in several meetings on the European level and others, that perhaps the evidence is there that this actually saves money and saves patient, ineffective treatments and side effects, but still we're not implementing it. So that's interesting, to say the least.
I would like to add something about, as we heard before, we are patients, we are people, and sometimes we have relatives who are prone to side effects due to medications they have received. I think it would be interesting to consider pharmacogenomics also among people, so to say, in the healthy population, because that will also help us going forward as we all age.
Could you even envision sort of newborn, the screening, if you had your pharmacogenomics passport already from sort of the start, would that be?
You can envision a lot of things from those labs, but the critical point here is what we're doing today isn't on a solid ground. So let's start with the most important things, because it's so easy to have these potential things you can do, and I'll try to bring it back to here and now. We're actually a little bit afraid that we can maintain our national system because the regions don't support it. So we have to start from the basics and also handle all that data. Maybe I could add something on the HTA that I didn't mention. I mentioned the newborn screening. It's national. We actually have, we are entitled to do national follow-up. We have our own little section in that law, even though it's regional. So that is actually one point of sort of provoking the system. And if we could do this horizon scanning that I mentioned briefly, to plan for screening of new disorders and also plan for trials and do it together, then we could develop these models for how we should handle the costs for these treatments. And the companies want that, but they can't do it in Sweden because they can't get the national data. So we could envision some sort of a national center with national follow-up and developing these cost models. How do you plan for one-time treatment, 20 million crowns, curing? There's no way of doing that today. But we could do it if we sort of decided on trying.
And I think this is, of course, also where the EU could also, sharing experiences, sharing all these, the knowledge
and
and
the horizon
data.
scanning.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to have a seat, just so you know, you don't have to take a chair.
Only 2 chairs, so it's a little.
Just so you know, you're welcome to.
I just wanted to add about the organization of HTA, of our health technology assessment units in Sweden. We have 6 of them. Even though we are 7 university hospital, we have 6 HTA units. Uppsala and Örebro are sharing the same one. Uppsala wisely decided that the one in Örebro they could use. So, and I'm biased because I'm from Örebro. So that's the way it works. But probably the HTA units could be how shall I put it, more effectively used, on a national level, I think.
Eller en kommentar?
So first of all, once again, thanks a lot for all the presentation. Very interesting. I have a follow-up question, or is a correlated question to the HTA, which is the clinical trials, because usually they go hand in hand. So everyone has mentioned that there is a goal to increased the number of clinical trials, because it's also something that is very close to patients. So my question is, and I have experience in international clinical trials. There are a lot of hurdles that make costs raise and time of clinical trials be longer. So I was just asking if you have or are planning also kind of strategy to reduce all the hurdles connected to clinical trial and make them shorter, more efficient, less expensive, so that we need less investment to make them.
It has to be done. And then I think we have to, and there are probably other experts here who know more from that side, but we are very keen on supporting them and then coming together, because it has to be done. And it also has to do with data, having to follow data and do it in modern ways. But there are people who know more about that here than I do.
I can just comment also that I mean, even though what we have said, the government has clearly stated that they want a national health data infrastructure. So they are working quite hard on to leverage this in different ways, both regulatory and physically. But then, of course, there are also similar, as you say, initiatives from the government to foster clinical trials. But Frida, perhaps you are one of the experts in this area.
And I just want to say, and as Karin, you also stated very clearly that the patients, they want to be able to be part of trials.
Yeah. We want to be offered relevant trials.
Yeah, and I would say that the so my name is Frida Lundmark. I come from LEAF, that's the trade association for the research-based pharma companies, and I work quite a lot with clinical trials and trying to get our member companies to do more clinical trials in Sweden. And I would say that the initiatives from the government, but also from the regions in Sweden, very clearly shows that there is a clear strategy to increase the number of patients to be able to be included in clinical trials, and also in that case also increase the number of clinical trials. And in terms of competitiveness, the cost of doing clinical trials in Sweden it's not that expensive. It's not the cost that is the key limit. It's the resources and the capacity in healthcare to actually do the clinical trials rapidly and efficiently. So that is also why we do have this government assignment to the MPA to give suggestion on how to structure and initiate a new partnership for clinical trials in the same way that we see in Denmark and Norway, for example, with TriNation and NordTrial. So we are very much looking forward to the next coming month when this will be a bit more clearly and concrete. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that we have been discussing for HMP, it's also complicated. We need to prepare the hospitals in order to be able to actually join and conduct the clinical trials. So we have been talking about similar things as you were speaking about, the horizon scanning for screening, but now we talk about clinical trials, so that we have some sort of a platform or discussion about what is upcoming and what would be needed from the hospitals, so we have time to prepare and we can sort of say yes and be ready when it actually is the time to start the trial.
And I think tomorrow you will have time to discuss even more about this. And I will go over here, but Casper, if we have some questions in the chat or digitally, you can let me know. That's goodbye.
Thank you. My name is Michael Pilson, and I have two hats here. Part of working together with Malin as government office, e-health agency. I'm also part of the European Health Data Space preparation, as Richard had the icons for. And we work closely with the Digital Santé on this matter, and we are very on the spot, to speak, very concretely to formulate a technical specification for metadata catalogs for national purposes to be shared with European Data Portal. And my question is a two-part. The first one is when we are talking about metadata catalogs in your perspectives here, you're having a tremendous platform. And in my previous life, I was working with research in rehabilitation medicine for chronic pain patients. And we were doing different kinds of study with big data. And in order to do so, we have to make use of different kind of categories. And how do you do that in practice when you have all these omics and add patient symptom omics and clinicians' clinical finding omics together? It's a very interesting formulation. How do you manage to combine the metadata catalogs? And the question B is this part is, I was at a meeting with the committee today, and we are discussing data enrichment and data linkage. And they are part of the question A, because how do you go about and achieve data enrichment in a practical sense? So we can learn from that and also put it back into TEDA's experiences.
Well, I think maybe more people have things to say. I can start a little bit. So I can start by saying it hasn't been done, but it has to be done. And I'm not a technical expert at all, but what we try to do from our perspective is very much to start sort of, this is implementation. This is a critical part of implementation, to form academic project around it and invite people who are health informatics, because I don't really know how, genomics is one thing. It's sort of it's reasonably modern to have some standards. But if you talk about the classical health data, which is like mass spectrometry data, those are really critically important things to get value out of the genomics data. I don't think anyone really knows the magnitude of the problem to structure that data, but we are trying to invite people, and we have some master students to start from the beginning and really make them interoperable to find the right standards. And I think this is beyond my expertise, but there aren't even standards for all types of data. So then we need to start making them and not be not skip it because it's too hard. We have to do the really, really hard stuff that will take a long time. But we shouldn't just see it as a cost. We should make them as a learning process and make academic, value of it, because this is implementation science. And it has to be done. But we're in the very early days. But it's just the awareness of, combining the different types. Then it becomes very unique, because some of these things you don't have in many places. So that wasn't a very technical answer. But we are on it, I would say, from our little corner. But that's why we need to come together and form programs around it.
Yeah, I can comment from GMS and the National Genomics Platform. Of course, we have worked a lot with the metadata standards, and because you need that, we are creating a data lake with data from many different centers, 14 partners. So then you have to agree upon the data, sort of the hierarchy, etc. And now we are continuing, as I was alluding to. Both authorities would like to connect our data, and also the National Health Care Register. And of course, then you have to have a common language that is possible to do this. And there is also another, the 1+Million Genome Project also, I have been part for the cancer, where we have set up a minimal data set for cancer, both from a diagnostic and treatment perspective. And I think that all this sort of helps us to have a mindset that we have to unify the metadata in order to, because eventually we want to share all the whole genomes that we have done in Sweden at the European level, and then we have to have everything prepared for that. So I think it's super important. We're also right now starting a new project together with the Swedish Childhood Cancer Society, where we want, within the National Genomic Platform, we will have an open source of combined clinical, pathological and genomics data. It's called Brainchild, this project. And there will be an open and a closed part. Also in that way, you need to have very clear metadata if people want to share the data later on.
Okay, so yeah, in Örebro we have just started a project where we're just starting from scratch, building a totally new data platform, and the ambition is to include all the data that we have on this platform. And obviously we are really following closely EHDS and development and what will the standards be and what is the metadata catalog, because I think it has to be used for all data, not just for a small part, because we don't know today what kind of data we will use. So, and I think we are really struggling in Sweden in the regions. What does this mean for the regions themselves? What do we have to do to be EHDS ready? We know that we have to do a lot with our own data. And not only the metadata, it's all the structure, the interoperability, and this is a huge work that our IT departments have to do. And we are just starting to find out how do we do this? How do we approach this? But I think, just like you said, Anna, we have to look at this as an investment. This is not, are we going to or are we not? We just have to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Just for information, there is a metadata catalog in development from the European side. It's based on, in a technical term, DCAT AP, and it's a health extension for this. And the work we are doing now will be open for public consultations. So you are most welcome to look into that and have feedback during the spring. We will deliver this open consultation in mid of January. But we can talk about that later on. Thank you.
Can I just say something? This is coming from the side a little bit. I so agree with what Anna is saying about trying things out at the smaller scale in projects or in sandboxes, test beds, because we learn so much. And that is an investment, in fact, in expertise in the people in the projects. However, if these projects are too small, they will create islands and they will not meet. And so it comes back to one of my points, and many others also said, that we need these large collaborative platforms like GMS and others to really come together in and really get all the expertise in at the same time. Because we can't leave something for, we'll ask them later, because they will be in some other platform at best, or they will be sore that you left them out. So learning together, but on a larger scale, so we avoid fragmentation as well.
I mean, the critical part is always, you do a pilot and then everyone wants more, but scaling is not just more of the pilot. It really requires a whole new effort, and that's where we are now, I would say, in many areas.
And I think also, Karin, what you said, that this has to be done. I mean, sometimes we end up privacy and we need to be careful, but I mean, from a patient perspective, you want the clinician to have all the available information to treat you, right?
Yes, of course. And I mean, to share data, that's what we want. Of course we do. And then, of course, we want to know where our data will go away, so we don't sort of misuse it.
Some sort of control.
Yeah,
you want to be involved and.
But we have asked our members, and I think 99% says that they want us to share data. Because, I mean, it's so absurd, I think, the logistic system in Sweden. If I come to Gothenburg, they can't read my journal there. They can't see it. And that's not security, patient secure, no, I think.
Patient safety. Do we have a question in the chat later on? Or? No. Okay. Helena.
So I just want to elaborate a little bit about this. With the 21 different regions, with the 21 different legal representatives that have totally different interpretations of the legal framework, this is also the reality. And that is, we have to be able to agree on how do we interpret GDPR, for instance. And also the balance. I think, someone said at some point that US innovate, Asia replicates, EU regulate. And we have really, we are really good at regulating. We are regulating to the degree that we are locking the data. We are not using it for the benefit of the patient or the society. So the balance between privacy, integrity, and openness, I think we have to look at patient safety from the perspective of, okay, so is it the safety of the patient, the lack of data, instead of using the data? So, yeah.
I would like to say something positive. I mean, we have discussed...
Sorry, I didn't mean to be negative.
No, but I mean, we have been discussing these 21 healthcare regions. I mean, that we just have to live with them. That's how it is. And that's, I think, we have managed with many different initiatives that you heard today to do a lot of things grassroots and a lot of initiatives that has actually influenced in the end the governmental decisions. So I think that we have a power bottom up also when the profession wants something together with patients and others. And I think we should continue, because I think that's the driving force of the country, so to say, where we want to take the next step with innovation, etc. But of course, it would be good sometimes to have a little bit more top-down regarding healthcare. But just so you know, there is an investigation ongoing of making healthcare partly or fully state-owned. So there is, so even though we are complaining, people are aware, the government are aware of the situation.
We're not just complaining, we're also very positive.
Yes.
No, I know.
Thank you,
say
Rickard.
that you are.
And just adding to the discussion, I think, like you said, we need to do things at scale. We need to gather. And this is where I also think you can contribute and take part on a European level, because, of course, there are activities around this to build capacity. So if we also at the European level, we get even further, probably. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to the discussion. More questions?
So this is, let's say, not a technical question, more an organizational question. As Matteo said at the beginning, one of the aim of this in situ visit also to replicate, push other regions and countries to replicate. So I have one question about the budgeting of the Precision Medicine Initiative, budgeting and funding, because it's a very ambitious, very, very nice. But my question is, if you have this information about how it's gonna cost to implement all of this, and which source of funding is being mobilized? It's just national, regional, how it's going to work?
Yes, I can perhaps start with, because we have been working for many years with about the funding for a national initiative, and it's complex. So we have had a funding from Vinnova, from the government to Vinnova to us, and it's sort of co-financing by all the universities, all the university hospitals throughout Sweden. So that has been the base for the last 6-7 years, the main funding, and now we are hoping that the government has made an announcement that they will fund precision health the 6 coming years from the state budget, and we hope that we are part of that sort of investment from the government. So I think that this is, of course, we have, from the beginning, we were asked how much does it cost. So in our 10-year plan, we have put in, we have really try to make an estimate, and it's quite a lot that we require to get this going. But we fully understand we will not get everything, so it's a mixed economy where we are competing with grants on an EU level, on national level, regional level, and it's a mixed economy where we put different money streams together in order to realize this. And I think it will continue like that because it is quite expensive. So what we are trying to get is the cost for the gap between research and when it's a routine method. As when it comes into production in healthcare, then of course healthcare takes over. So it's this in-between cost that we are covering.
And then we have the healthcare taking over part, which is also needs, and that's hard because there's no mechanism to channel that type of money into making sustainable change. And that's a main message that we need to understand, that we have to take care of that part as well. And that's a little bit more difficult, but if you do it at the same time, that's why we need an awareness that we have to do something new organizational-wise. I explain it as a new level of care. I can't see any other way. Maybe there's another way, which is state responsibility, but performed by the regions. But we also have to do this governance model thing in that part of healthcare, because then it becomes obvious that it's a very sensible thing to do also when it comes to cost and sustainability. And it's the only way to provide this type of care, so it's not just promoting academia. But we will need new models also for interacting with industry, in fact, for these trials, etc. And that we haven't figured out, to be honest. But we need new ways of interacting to really, again, use the system in a more sensible way. Yeah.
Good. I sort of missed the time here. We should end this discussion right now. Oh, we have one in the chat. Of course, we need to stay. But I think, all of these fantastic people are staying. So, you can discuss this further.
Thank you. Yes, here's more of a comment from the coordination of EP PerMed. It's that there will be plenty of opportunities to fund and support personalized medicine. So relating to your question, how do you find budget, etc. So this is meant to... EP PerMed is the largest ongoing, as you know, effort in personalized medicine. So he wants to raise that. And also send the message that there will be plenty of opportunities to provide input into the second strategic research and innovation agenda for personalized medicine. So take that opportunity. Yes.
Very good. Thank you, the coordinators. And of course, that's definitely, why we're here. And I think the messages from your presentations and also from the discussions, we will record your presentations and make them available on the website, not this discussion, but we're thinking we could summarize it as some sort of one-pager, so that we have these thoughts and that both national funders and European funders can look at it and be inspired. Because, we're doing it together. It's not someone magical person with all the answers somewhere. It's all of us together. Okay, thank you in the digital room. We will now end that part and we will enter to site visit. So you will go and visit the imaging center. So thank you. And now we can relax a little bit. Now it's not as...